Hello everybody, Michael here from the Roll Again YouTube channel, and welcome to the first episode of Basic Paints. I think that's what the title's gonna be. I don't know, I'll fix it sometime in the future, I don't know. So basically what this little series that I'm gonna be starting up is just me painting either Warhammer models, D&D models, Pathfinder models, stuff like that. Just, you know, this is a hobby channel. It's a channel where we do tabletop games and stuff. So, why not have painting tutorials? Because I do a lot of painting. I'm not the best at it, but hopefully you guys can follow along, learn some stuff as I learn, and I hope you guys do enjoy. So let's get right into the video. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be painting some Chaos Space Marines. In my own personal design, I designed this one a while ago, and I really like the way it turned out, so this is what we're going to be painting today, and let's get right into it. Now, what I started off doing was I primed it in a gray, and then I went over it again on the top with the white, just to, exaggerate those pink colors and make it look a little bit better. Then I used some Set It Out Screamer Pink as the base coat, and that's what I used for the main coating of the whole model, pretty much. What I ended up doing was pretty much just coating the whole model, or most of the model. You don't really need to coat the legs or the weapon or anything. Yeah, so once we have the model completely coated, just go back over some of the ridges and stuff that weren't as thick and make sure you get paint all over them. So after I let it dry and sit there for a few minutes, I used some Abaddon Black to paint the legs and some of the other parts of the body that I wanted to have black later, or just as a base coat for things. So what I ended up doing with the legs is I just did a light coat of black on them. It doesn't really have to be a complete coat. And I tried to only get like the recesses areas and the parts that I was eventually going to end up painting silver. And that's pretty much all I did with the black, was just painting over the parts where I was eventually going to put silver, because I think it adds a very nice aesthetic to any silver that you paint if you have a darker color underneath it. Lighter colors don't work so well with silver. It makes it kind of like, it makes the undercolor kind of bleed through if it's lighter. But if you use really dark colors underneath the silver, it usually helps it a bit. I also ended up painting the hands and the gun and the chainsword for him as well. After letting him dry again, what it ended up doing was taking some of this Balasar gold, and it's more of a copper color than a gold, if anything, but it works really well. I usually use a fine paintbrush to do this part, and what I ended up doing was just painting the armor plates, like the, what is it called, the lining, the armor lining, the trim, that's the word. I ended up painting the trim and stuff, this Balthazar gold, and it kind of gives it a copper color, which works with like the pinks and the reds and stuff, gives it more of a red color, and I really like the way it turned out. I mean, again, we're gonna have to go back and fix a lot of the mistakes, because when painting this kind of stuff, you're trying to get it just right. You're gonna have to go back, do a few more layers over like the pink where I accidentally spilt a little bit of the gold on. Alright, so after I finished up with all of the trimming for the gold, I went back over a whole bunch of the spots that I wanted to end up just straight black. I used a matte black for this, and I just painted over the parts that I knew were going to be black when it was completely finished. Alright, now it's time for the silver. So what I ended up doing is I used some Leadbelcher, which is just a fairly nice silver. It's a fairly darker silver. And what I did right here, anyways, I put over the cape, or not the cape, the little dangly piece from his loincloth. And then after that, I just went over and put it all on the silvery bits where I had painted black at one point. And if you can see, I'm not putting a thick layer on. I'm more or less like wet dry brushing, I guess is the best term for it. Where you can still see the black underneath, which kind of adds this like rustic look to it, I guess, is the best way of putting it. I don't know. I just started painting this stuff. I don't know the best wording for it. But yeah, it just kind of added that nice, like, torn up silver look to it. What I also ended up doing was dry brushing some of the armor paneling that I really wanted to have more of a silvery look to it. So, like the little parts that are on his armor that look like should be metal, but also like kind of black. So, just kind of adds a little bit of differentiation with the coloring. Alright, time for leather. So I used some leather brown, and what I ended up doing was painting all of the belt, the armor pouches, or not the armor pouches, the ammo pouches, and the gun holster. So I just went over it with a light layer of this maybe once or twice just to get it, filled up, get it look like a solid color. And after that, the model started turning out pretty well. I think at this point, it looks like an actual painted model. I mean, we only got a few steps left to finish this, so we're almost done. Alright, up next, I started using some Ancient Mummy to get those bones done. If you can tell from the model, he has some bone stuff sticking up, and I wanted to paint that a bony color. Ancient Yellow at first looks really yellow, but actually, once it dries, it ends up having a really nice light or like off-white that makes it look like it's a bone. And then once you put a wash on that, it makes it 10 times even better because it adds to the recesses and stuff. Alright, it's time to do the loincloth and all the fleshy parts that we're going to have on there. So we just used some barbarian flesh from Armyman Painters, and I just kind of layered it all over the loincloth and made sure to get into the recesses of the loincloth and stuff. And after that, I used some Dungeoneer metal to paint things like, his sword and other bits that I wanted to look like a darker metal color, like a brown metal, just to kind of add some glint to the model a little bit. So after I finished painting the dark metal colors, I went back and kind of filled in all the spots that I kind of overflowed with the pink, or not with the pink, with other colors, so I could fill in the pink again. I'm just doing some touch-up work here to make the model look a little bit more complete, putting all of the pink back so that it doesn't look like I just slopped all the paint on there. Gives it a little bit more professionalism to it, and just kind of adds to the nice aesthetic of clean lines. Alright, so after I touched up the paint a little bit, I went to the eyes, and I ended up just painting them this really nice light blue color, and I think they turned out really well for the brush I used to paint them anyways. Yeah, I think they turned out really well. After doing that with the eyes, I used some of this Mephiston red, and I combined it with some black, and I just kind of made a little bit of blood, or blood color, to paint on certain parts of the model to make it look a little bit more chaosy, because, you know, chaos, we need some blood in there. And yeah, I used that to just add some blood. I dry brushed it around the loincloth a little bit and on other parts of the body. Alright, now it's time for basing. So with basing, I ended up using this rigid leather for the base color. Now, I would normally use a different color, but I ran out, so I had to go online, purchase some off Amazon. This is the color I normally use for it, this Sterling Battlemire, which is like a small mud color. It adds a little bit of texture and stuff. And what I ended up doing was just put a few thin layers, then I put this static grass and some just regular super glue on it, because I don't use all the fancy hodgepodge glue and stuff like that. Just put it on. I put on a little bit too much, so I ended up just spreading it a little bit around the model so that I didn't have just a big clump of grass on one spot. Yeah, so after that, I went over to a bin that I have for this type of stuff, and I started sprinkling on the grass, put it over the bin, and just kind of shook it around so that it wouldn't get all over my room, because messing with grass is very, very messy. And I just kept shaking it until I liked what I got. And I think it turned out pretty well for not having the correct mud color or anything. I think it turned out really well. So after pretty much finishing painting the model, I went over it with some matte black again to finish the base. Just kind of added around the base, and it really adds a nice aesthetic, so it doesn't look white, doesn't look plain. So yeah, just black around the base. Alright, now it's time for the wash. Now the wash is kind of like a cheat mode, honestly. If you're new to painting at all, this is how everyone makes their models look nice. Take a wash, take a big brush, and just kind of lather it over everything that you want to look just a little bit darker or a little bit better. And once it dries out, and once you've put enough wash on it, it ends up looking amazing afterwards. It may look like I'm just covering it with this nasty stuff, but this is what they ended up looking like in the end, and I think they ended up looking terrific. I hope you guys did enjoy this first episode of Basic Paints, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.